Hello, everyone. I am super excited. We are back for another episode. This week, I have with me Sam Halliwell. She is a trauma-informed endometriosis coach, and she is the founder of Embodied Alchemy Method, which we are going to get into today. She supports high-achieving women who feel stuck in chronic symptoms like pain, fatigue, fertility struggles, and emotional burnout to reconnect with their body's wisdom and heal from within. Her approach blends mind-body healing, nervous system work, emotional alchemy, and deep self-leadership. So, Sam, I'm super excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So, we're going to dive into all things endometriosis. We're going to go into just everything about women's health because that's what we're here for. So, let's get started. Tell me more about your story. Like what brought you to doing what you're doing today?
So it started very much with my own journey. I was diagnosed with endometriosis in my early 20s and realistically had suffered many years before that, but just didn't have a name for it.
Yeah.
I remember even from my very first menses, it was utter hell on earth. And I suffered regularly, and my endometriosis was diagnosed at stage 4 level, which means it's quite pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
It's in multiple locations, multiple problems. It also caused me with the fertility issues as well. And my journey through all of that was really quite troublesome. I had ridiculously high levels of pain. I had baby loss as well. Like there were so many parts to it, which were just the higher end of some of the things you see and hear about. And I'd regularly have operations, and I'd get a bit of relief for a couple of years, and then back it would come with a vengeance. A couple of years later, knock me off my feet, miss time off work, the amount of opiates I'd have to be on just to get through a day. It was quite terrifying looking back, thinking how I had to, daft things like, because I couldn't give up work entirely because I needed the income-wise, I'd have to plan meticulously when I could take some medication so that I would be safe enough to drive, and then it would hit in just when I'd get into work. But I'd be doubled over at work in the fetal position trying to work on a computer, strapped to 3 hot water bottles.
Wow.
And it was just no way to live. It was pretty horrific. And all I kept getting from doctors, even the really good ones, was this sticky plaster approach of, well, we'll do another operation, do another excision surgery, take everything any endo we can see, put you back together. You'll probably be all right for a couple of years, but the level you've got it at, it's going to come back. And that, to me, did not sound like a good approach for the rest of my life. By this point, I'm in my 20s, 30s. Oh my gosh, I'm hoping for decades more life in me yet, and this is what I've got available. And then their only extra solution to that was, oh, well, after so many times that we do it, we actually can't do any more, and so we'll just do a hysterectomy, and then we'll take the whole lot out. Probably won't cure it, because hysterectomy doesn't cure endo, but it might, but that's your only option. There was so much of me that was like, how can this be? How can this be my only thing that's available to me? And you can imagine all the emotions that came with it, the anger, the grief, the sadness, the sheer rage, quite frankly. And looked then at alternative options, and there didn't seem to be all that many. There are nowadays a bit more. Is getting some more noise about it, which is great. But back then there was literally crickets. And I found one thing that I did on purpose and one thing that happened by accident. And it was from that what I do now was born. So the thing that I did on purpose, I found a book written that talked about eating foods depending where you were in your cycle. And it's very science-based wording. And I just love the approach because I'd already at this point, I'd tried so many things that were available. And I had tried so-called endo diets, which do work for some, great, but just did not work for me. The have this, don't have that approach didn't personally work for me. But this idea of changing what you eat depending where you are in your cycle. I was like, that makes sense to me logically because this disease is cyclical. And I tried it and it did make a massive difference to my symptoms. So I kept on with that. And at the same sort of time, and I think this is just when the universe kind of aligns for you, that two coinciding things working together in that way, that synergy that we speak of. I was at the same time doing some personal development work. Had no intention that it would make any difference to my endo at all. It was just I knew I had some trauma and rubbish and stuff from my past that was affecting my mental health and just my ability to be free and happy. So I embarked on a series of courses in quite intensely looking at that. And the turning point, the kind of big eye-opening moment, if you like, I was at this retreat, and it was actually a retreat about wealth, so nothing to do with health in any way, shape or form, except for if you know about body mapping, is that wealth is stored in our gynecological area as women. And I know this now, but at the time I didn't. So I'd gone to this wealth retreat. And at the time my job was as an accountant as well. So I'd gone to this retreat a little bit quite sure and quite happy, actually. You know, there were other retreats I was dreading that I knew were areas that were tough for me. But this retreat, I was almost looking forward to, thinking, well, I'm an accountant. I know how to sort my money. Like, I know how to do it. You know, I felt quite confident. But what ended up happening, my health kicked off really badly beforehand. And 4 days before the retreat, I had one of these operations. So I'd had a laparoscopy, which they call minor surgery. But when you've got endometriosis, the amount of moving they have to do in there, it really wrecks your body. And then 4 days later, this retreat was booked in, and I'm very stubborn. When I
just
put
a little
my
bit?
mind, or a lot, and I was determined I was not going to miss this retreat. Like, I don't care. I mean, I didn't dare tell the doctors. They'd probably banned me from going, but I was going. So I'd arranged with the company, like, you know, I'm going to be on crutches. I'm going to be, you know, I can't sit down on the floor. I can't do, like, and we'd made all these arrangements to help support what I would be able to do. And it was a 3-day retreat, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The Friday was just awful. I was literally clock watching, counting down the seconds till I could take the next dose of morphine. I mean, that's the amount of painkillers as I was on morphine.
Wow.
How anything of that day even got in through my brain, through the opiate-induced state, is beyond me. And of course, as with most things that are chronic pain related, as the day goes on, the pain gets worse. So then by the time it came to the evening, I am barely functioning. And on the Friday at these particular retreats, there is an evening class. And the evening class at this particular one was a dynamic meditation. Now, have you ever done a dynamic meditation before?
Mm-mm.
So as it sounds, hence the name dynamic, it's not the meditation that we think of, you know, the silent, cross-legged, kind of go on a journey. Instead, it's moving, closed eyes, but moving non-stop.
Okay.
And it also sometimes called an active meditation. I think it's another name that I can't think of.
Yeah.
But music's like really loud. You're moving non-stop, and it's all about getting stuff in your body out. And I had done one of these meditations before, and I loved them. And yet here I was at this one, barely able to move an inch side to side. Like, that was excruciatingly painful. Wow. And going into this evening session, I'm thinking, I'm not going to get nothing from this. Like, it's going to be such a useless thing for me to sit through, because I can't move, and the whole point is to move. And it's quite big movements as well. So there's people, you know, stomping on the floor. There's people screaming into pillows.
Yeah, I'm like, I've seen like this. And like
it's all big, bold tears and all of this huge movements. And there's me, like, literally an inch side to side is the maximum I can do. And I'm just sitting there with my eyes closed, and I'm sitting on a seat because I couldn't even stand, thinking, well, this is going to be the most useless 90 minutes of my life. And then something bizarre happened. The best I can describe it, it's what people would call an out-of-body experience, which I know sounds a bit, but that's the best I can describe it. And I could picture myself from the other side of the room. So the real me is sitting there with the eyes closed, but this other me was the other side of the room looking round the room. And this other me found the situation, saw the juxtaposition between all these people who were big, bold, crazy moves, which anywhere else in any other scenario, they would look the odd one out. But in this room, me barely moving an inch side to side, I looked like the odd one out. And I, in fact, looked quite bizarre by contrast. And something about that image made me laugh. But not just laugh. You know when you get that giggles laugh where you hysterical to the point of can't breathe laughing? That's what I was. And I pretty much spent the hour of the last hour of the 90-minute meditation hysterical, maniacal laughing. Anyway, thought nothing of it. Meditation ends. I thought, wow, that was a better way to spend it than I thought it was going to be. Went off to bed. Didn't expect no more heed than that. Woke up the next morning. No pain. And I'm like, this is a bit bizarre. Practically skipped down to breakfast without the crutches. Still no pain. This is bizarre. And I even remember sharing on this, because it was called Mike shares of, your experience from yesterday, And I shared, I'm feeling quite pain-free today. Some of you may have noticed I was on crutches, in surgery 5 days ago at this point. But I'm now feeling great. And it stayed like that all through the day. And the difference in how I was then able to show up physically was so dramatic. I remember one lovely lady, one of the participants, she came up to me and said, I don't mean to be rude, Sam. There's no way of saying this without sounding rude, but were you telling the truth about having only had an operation 5 days ago? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, but you can't have. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm calling you a liar, but I think you're lying. And it was because it had been such a recent amount of time since the op, I was able to lift up my top, and I still had the surgical bandage on it.
Yeah,
It had that horrible iodine edge to it, and I was able to literally lift up the top in it. See, that's the surgical bandage, and she nearly fainted. And she was like, I cannot believe, what on earth did you do? I was like, genuinely, like I shared, all I did was laugh like a madwoman for an hour, and I don't know how on earth this has had this impact. And that continued for days, and something about it was so, because of how significant of a difference it made.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't stop my endo coming back, and endo did come back in and then or whatever.
Right.
But something about that really stuck with me why was it laughing like a madwoman for an hour made me go from so in pain I could barely function as a human being to skipping down to breakfast. And that then started me very much on this deep dive research into the mind-body connection and and the nervous system and how chronic illness can relate to trauma and things from our childhood, and all this mapping and connections that I've discovered since. It started me down that route. And then by having the two options together, because I was doing the food thing at the same time, that very much formed the basis of how I approach now with the clients I have. It is truly what we call that holistic. Then it's not one tool that I provide; it's a whole, wide range, depending on the person who's in front of me. I could take 10 people through the exact same program in inverted commas, and all 10 will have a very different experience because their endo is different. Their presentation of problems is different. What their body responds to is different. Something that works for one does not work for another.
100%.
But there's something, and all of them have this same basis of some of the basics, like our food, our environment, the chemicals that are around us, our nervous system responses, our stress level responses, trauma and inner child healing. There's these seeds that are common.
Yep.
And it's just the how it comes out that then is different by each woman.
And that's 100%. You're definitely spot on there. And even in the work that I've done, you talk about bringing people through the same type of program, but we're personalizing it in different ways, and everybody has a different outcome.
Yeah.
Now, body mapping, that's something that like I don't know what it is, but that's more, I guess I would say that's more of my gift of what I do because I can see people's organ. I remember you and I had talked about this on our, our intro call. Like I can see people's organs and then determine what traumas and everything that's sitting in that space. But it sounds like for you, you're doing the exact same thing. You're sitting in that space where not necessarily maybe every single organ and sitting in it. You see a path for each woman that holds true for her and for what her glory, her light, her shining, her healing is.
Yes. And for me, so much of my methodology, if you like, is around the experience side of things, because I take women through a process where we'll look into what's underneath, what patterns are underneath, how the illness is showing up, and in a very particular safe process, I take them back to when the limiting belief or the challenge that's part of it was created. And in doing that, we're able to alchemize it and change how that shows up in the present day life. Now, that doesn't mean that I can magically take the trauma away from having happened to her,
Right.
but it can change how it's showing up and how it's affecting somebody.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful process to. I've had that as a client. I've worked with amazing coaches taken me through this kind of process, and being able to give that now and help people to have that different response in their day-to-day now, because they're not carrying around the stuff that they have for their entire life so far.
Yeah.
These are huge things, and this is where the physicality, again, that whole holistic mind, body, spirit, they all connect as one. You can't separate one from the other, because they are all serving. And not that there's a lot of science, sadly, about endo, because the research is way too small in quantity. But what little is out there, there are some scientific evidence that shows certainly the nervous system response, stress responses, and there is even a study that shows like a mother wound link with endometriosis. Yeah. So there are some bits out there. I look forward to the day when there's more out there, because some people do find it hard to picture why that link exists. But I see it every day in the women that I help. The amount of times I'll get a message of after we've gone through something big, of basically that same experience that I had during that meditation of, I woke up this morning and I'm skipping down the street, like what on earth did you do? And I'm like, well, it was you that did the work, my dear. I just held the space.
Yeah,
and that's exactly
it.
Isn't it?
Yep. And that's the magical work that you do. So I have a question. Did you dance before this? Like before you ever did that? Huh?
Today, you mean?
Well, no, before you went through your experience in that meditation. Were you dancing before? Like did you just randomly dance, or?
Not on that day, because I was in so much pain too.
No, before that. So like prior to, you were never a dancer, right? It was just something that you were into?
Yeah, not a dancer per se. I did a lot of theatre, and I did a lot, and we did musical theatre. So
so you did musical theatre.
Yeah, so and one thing I'm very conscious of as well, so much of my journey when I dug into it, the freeing of my body and its movements, the amount of difference that had on my endo was huge, because certainly when I was younger, despite having that theatre outlet, that also kind of became part of trauma incident for me personally, and that got taken away from me. I wasn't able to do trauma, and there was a whole thing about how that was taken away, which actually caused quite a scar. And what that meant, and I can see looking back now, so much of my endo, when it was at its worst, was because I didn't move my body.
Yeah.
I was so stuck physically in freeze mode, mentally and physically, and that would cause that tension, which endo loves a good bit of tension. That's its ground to run free. And at my worst points, for sure, the tension in my body was so high, and bringing that movement. And that's why one of the big things I offer in the membership that as well is somatic work. So I'm a trained embodiment coach, and so I facilitate a movement session now to get the unstuckness.
Oh, I love that. I was gonna ask you, I'm like, do we have active
Yeah,
movement in there? Because we should. And
absolutely.
one of the things that I teach a lot of my clients, and I'm sure you do the same thing. So that feminine energy, we talk about the more body split. You got the right side, you got the left side, you got the masculine side, you got the feminine side. And one of the things that dis-ease, let's put it that way, thrives on is more that masculine do energy, right? That's where you get frigid, you get those stuck motions, and movements on things because conditioning says do more, do more. You're not doing enough. How dare you not do enough? Do more.
Yeah,
And it removes a lot of the feminine aspects, that motherly touch or that nurturing aspect, or just a fun and creative space, the space
yeah,
to move, the space to dance. I tell a lot of my clients, like, put some music on and go dance this weekend. It's
yeah,
your only homework. Like, just move around, do it with your kids. My kids and I, oh my God, we put music on in the house and we have a huge dance party and we're just all dancing around. And
yeah,
they're a little bit more frigid motions and stuff.
yeah.
You can tell which kid can like get into versus which one's like, I look like an idiot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It makes
So,
such a difference as well, and especially it's one of the biggest things that really underpins the framework I work with is that endometriosis is cyclical, and women are cyclical, even if
yeah.
and that doesn't matter whether you are having an active bleed or not. Even post-menopause, your cycle still exists. It's less obvious because there's, one of the main things is less obvious, but you still have one. And as women, we are cycling all the time. And it is one of our fundamental gifts as women. And when we honour that properly and work with our cycle instead of fighting it, the
Mm-hmm.
difference that alone can make to every woman, let alone someone with a chronic disease like endo, but every woman, when she honours that, the difference is huge. And there's that flow then that comes with that honouring. So one of the things that I look at as well with, depending on where you are in your cycle, as well as different foods being better that your body responds to, different energies as well. So, even some of the classic apps that are out there, the period tracking apps and that, they do ask you what your energy is like, but it will just ask you what's your energy out of 10. No,
Yeah.
missing the point. It's not how much energy do you have, because then again, that's framing it in a testosterone way, because that's saying 0 energy and 10 energy. That energy that's being measured is effectively how much testosterone you've got available to you, which we do have as women, and it's a very important hormone, but that is not the fundamental hormone that runs a woman's body. It is it's the mix of the top
Yep.
three and a few others, but the top three primarily.
Yeah.
And so you can have a 0 energy for going and socializing with friends, but you can have a 10 out of 10 energy for creating something.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And you can't then conflate that into one number to put on a 0 to 10 scale. So again, one of the things I look at really strongly with women is, what have you got the energy for? And there are certain energies that naturally fit into certain parts of our cycle. Ovulation stage, whether it's you're literally cycling or you're in sync with it another way, is really good for socializing. Ovulation, that is when you look sparkly, your skin is glowing, you want to go and you've got energy to stay up and go and party all night.
Yeah.
You can go clubbing, you can go and meet your friends for coffee and talk non-stop for 6 hours and you don't even notice the time. Try and do that 2 weeks later, it's going to wipe you out.
Yes.
Not a plan at
Yes.
all. That 2 weeks later, when we would be on our menstruation part, that is really good for the connecting to source pieces. That is the really good for spiritual part. That is
Yep.
good for reflection, for the intuition, the moments with oneself where you can reflect on the whole month and plan ahead, knowing that a week later you're going to get a big burst of energy, and that's when the fun really kicks in. So in between, after the menstruation, as we're heading towards ovulation, the fun comes out, the extra sense of being able to feel the buzz in the air, the awareness level is up. All these different things there are at every part of our cycle. There's not one part that's really bad or anything, which again, we're framed to think culturally,
Yep.
PMS, periods, can't do anything then, because that's what culture tells us to. But there are so much that we can have access to if we honour it, rather than listening to the cultural soup that says that 1 week of a month we're useless. That's just not true.
Yeah. And you know what? It's so interesting. I love that you frame it in this way. It's not that you don't have energy to not do all the things, right? And I like that there's no one size fits all here, because that's what that's what we always teach. There is no one size fits all. I might have energy like during my cycle. I might energy to do a few phone calls. I might have energy to do a little bit of my business, but maybe I want to go home and rest. Maybe I've got all the energy with my kids, or maybe I don't. Do you do anything around the moon as well? Are you into yeah, I figured you were. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Especially for women who aren't obviously having a menses.
Yeah. Yeah.
They tend to sync up
Yes.
with the moon cycle.
Yeah.
Not exclusively, but quite often. But
Yes.
even for those who are menstruating, if they're menstruating in line with the moon cycle, those energies, the typical energies, tend to be more pronounced. They do tend to fit the more stereotypical of what that energy is. If they're at the opposite to the moon cycle, there does need to then be that little bit of altering, because I'll be talking to someone like, so your ovulation, are you feeling the buzz to do this? And they're like, not so much. Okay, quick check. Yeah, because we're actually at the wrong side of moon cycle. So let's go somewhere in between. And then we hit the sweet spot. So there's so much of an interplay. And again, because we as women respond to the moon cycle and each other, of course.
Yeah. See, mine, I typically start around the new moon, like at like somewhere around there, or I just get off base altogether.
Yeah.
And then it's like, shit, where are we at?
Yeah.
Where are we at in relation to the moon?
Yeah.
But I mean, there have been times, because my cycles, so I didn't have endometriosis, I had PCOS, and I also had autoimmune, everything else added to that. So my cycle was bing, 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 bing for years. Now, after having kids and then going through perimenopause, everything changed again, because don't we love how perimenopause changes the game? But yeah, it changes again, and you're a different person every time that you go through a different cycle. Would you agree?
Yeah. And there's again research on that. So I'm trying to remember the name of the book now. The Female Brain by, oh gosh, I can't remember her
I'm going to write that down.
There's two books, The Female Brain and The Male Brain.
Okay.
I want to say Maria something. It'll come to me. But it is a very good book. And I'm sure it's in there, one of the pieces where she identifies scientifically that our brain chemistry, our literal chemistry in our brain, changes depending where we are in our cycle.
Yeah. And 100% I agree to that, because your hormones they're shifting, and I'm all about the eating around your cycle, right? Depending on what that looks like for you. Every person's different, just like you said there.
Yeah.
I tend to do better like with more fats in my luteal phase. And that kind of smooth things over, makes menstruation less painful. And then whenever menstruation does get here, there's like 2 days where I'm like, I don't want to eat nothing. Like, leave me alone. Let me crawl up in the bed. I just want to sleep. And it makes sense, because those are my 2 peak days. And then I start like coming out of my cocoon and being able to incorporate more carbs, being able to have more energy in different ways and different sources of fuel. And so it is very interesting, even looking back through that.
It is. And even just how we prepare the food, right?
Yeah.
So that can make a big difference on how we're able to absorb it. In our in the follicular stage, raw foods is really good, is a much better time to process it. But if you try and have the raw foods in your menstruation phase, your body just can't absorb it in the same way, and your body responds by creating a tension and a slowdown and all sorts of things that really aren't helpful. So you're having the raw a week later when you're in the follicular, brilliant, your body, and again that vibes with that energy of the tingling and the go and the fun and the excitement. And then as we get into the ovulation, the rich foods, that's when we can have much more richness in the variety of taste, the berries, think of the strawberries, we're much able to boast that richness, whereas again in menstruation, the calm and the blander foods, they're the ones that go through, and then from how they're prepared, the warmth, so stews.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you want to be having for your menstruation. And
And
again,
potatoes,
yeah, and
like
again,
your
then how it's
roots. Yeah.
roots is really good, because an example is when we get that sugar craving in that sort of PMS time, and we end up craving chocolate, that's because our brain has associated crave sugar equals chocolate. But that's a relatively modern association, because we are craving a type of sugar, but we have just tricked our brains into thinking that chocolate is the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, chocolate at the menstruation point and that PMS phase isn't really a good place to have it. Have the chocolate at ovulation, the richness of the foods, that's when it's really good for you. But at the menstruation, that come down you can get from having chocolate, it emphasizes more when you're in that phase. Instead, if you get the root vegetables, the butternut squashes, any of the squashes really, they're really good family to have, your sweet potatoes, all of those, and roasting them,
Mm-hmm.
that brings out the sugars, the natural sugars, in a different way and maximizes them, so we hit the sugar craving, so that we get the hit that we're seeking without the come down.
Yeah.
And again, that's where matching up that prep and the what and the how
mm-hmm.
makes quite a difference.
And carrots, look at carrots and how, if you look at your foods and the way that they're associated to chakras, right? And your chakra system and your energy system, your sacral is where your reproductive organs are. So and that's orange, it's associated to more orange. If you're eating more of those orange and red, so your potatoes, your sweet potatoes, your carrots, beets. Beets are phenomenal during that time frame. Now, not everybody loves beets, or somebody, I'll have some clients which they'll be like, so like canned beets? I'm like, no, fresh beets, fresh. And if you pop those into, like, sometimes we'll do them where you slice them kind of very thin and put them in the air fryer, put a little bit of salt on it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. They're so good.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. And there's so much you can do with that to find your rhythm with it. Because there were certain things for myself that I found, despite the fact that the indications were it was a really good time to have it, my body bread was an example. There are better times to eat that, but my body just didn't like it. And I'm not celiac or anything like that, but it would, no matter where in my cycle I had it, it would create an endo belly. I'd get the bloating, and so I'd only ever have it very consciously. Dairy, I'd have to be very careful when I had it, very careful. So there's certain bits where there's the generalizations that are really good, like, the warm stews being good for menstruation and some of those things like we've just talked about. And then there are some specifics for you. But when you get into the experimenting of it, and this is where this is what I then converse with my clients about and support them through, is, okay, so what we're going to try this time? And we're going to try something different this month. And you do it in a nice, gentle way. It doesn't have to feel like, because nobody wants something that should be pleasurable like food to feel like a chore. And in fact, a chore energy around it is unhelpful, because again, that'll bring attention. Oh, now I've got to figure out what I've got to eat, and like that's not going to help the vibe of it. But if it's I'm going to experiment. Last month I tried that ovulation. I wonder what happens if I pushed it back a week and increased a bit more of that food. Then what happens? And turn it into that fun experiment. And I remember having that going through that fun phase. I almost don't really have many more foods to try to do experiment with, so I don't have to do it vicariously with my clients instead. But that's making it fun, has that approach of curiosity, and the key thing that has to come in line with that is being able to have that connection with your body. Because if you're experimenting with, I wonder how my body responds to X, you're only able to collect the results if you have that connection with your body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that, for good reason, women who have chronic illnesses, they shut off that connection. And I get why. We've been there. When your body is in so much pain that it feels like it's attacking you every single day, there is a part of you that wants to be able to almost chop yourself off at the neck and just stick yourself on a robot body. And I remember I remember that. I used to joke to my husband, he'd go to the shops and he'd be like, "Oh, what do you want anything from the shops?" And I'm like, "Yeah, a new stomach, a new a new arm, a new leg, like," and he's like, not going to that kind of shop, darling." But that's what I was at one stage. I got to a point of almost hating my body, and so many women do, because it feels like your body is against you.
Yeah.
So the why we get there is understandable, and we miss out on so much when that happens.
Yeah.
And so the first pillar of the methodology I use is called reconnecting with the body, for that very reason, so that we are no longer shut off from the neck down. And that's where some of that movement comes in, because we start to be able to connect that. But also it's listening, it's knowing what your body's signals are sending to your brain. And our bodies do this all the time, unless you are literally in a medical paralyzed situation.
Well, even
your
then,
body is giving you signals.
Yeah, it's still communicating.
Yeah. It does. And this thing, I've had some clients be like, I remember one particular lady, bless her, she was like, my body doesn't tell me anything. It just doesn't. I don't get any signals at all. I'm like, really? Okay, so if you get up now and walk to the side of your room and stub your toe on the chair, you don't feel that? She's like, well, yeah, I feel that. I'm like, okay, so your body does send you signals. Yeah, but that's different. No, it's not.
You're still feeling it. There's still a connection.
Something. You hurt toe. Toe says to brain, ouch, that hurt. That's a signal. And all it is, though, is you have just shut out all of the others.
Yeah.
And it's just learning to reconnect with that. And, a lot of that goes into the way we breathe, the way we walk even. Gosh, considering breathing and walking is something breathing since they were born and walking since, 2-ish. It's amazing how poor some of us are at these activities. And, no judgment, we're just never taught. I certainly wasn't till I did all this stuff. It took me, nearly 30 years to figure this out. But being able to open up the body in breathing and walking, how that then brings those signals, because then that also brings the signal of the emotions as well, which links back to the whole trauma piece. Because if we can shut down parts of our body because of stuff that's happened to us in the past, and so those parts don't signal to us properly anymore because we have literally shut them off.
Yeah.
And yet emotions, when we have an emotion mentally, our bodies have a physical response every time, without fail. Yeah. Every single time. You might have learnt to ignore it, but your body's doing one. Yeah. If you're able to open it up again, it's able to clear those stuff that isn't relevant to the moment, so that if you're, if I was to suddenly feel angry now, you and I, Maisie, were having a lovely conversation here. If I was to feel angry now, that should be a signal that it's something else, because there's nothing you've said that could particularly anger me, so why would I be feeling that?
Yeah.
But if my body gave me that signal, I should be able to go, there's something I need to clear there.
Yeah. So I'm curious, so aside from dancing, we're talking about mind-body connection piece. What's a good exercise that people can do that can get them back into that mind-body connection, feeling different parts of their body, and maybe they don't want to get up and dance or whatever the case is? What's something else that they can do?
So one of the things I tend to talk about is something that it kind of takes the concept of a yoga nidra, but with a bit of a spin. So yoga nidra is obviously something that a lot of people use to help them go to sleep, in where you focus on each body part individually, and it helps relax it to help you go to sleep. I'll just give it a bit of a different spin and use it as kind of a body mapping exercise. And instead, it is just taking some deep breaths, really, getting yourself centered, getting yourself nice and connected to the seat where you are and comfortable, and to make sure you're in a comfortable position. And going through each body part one by one and concentrating and just paying attention. And sometimes if someone's cut off a lot, it can take quite a few goes. And it's one of the things that particular lady I spoke about who insisted she had no connection at all. I gave her this exercise to do a couple of times a day. And I said to her, just sit down somewhere comfortable and start with your thumb and just think about your right hand thumb. And then think about your right hand index finger. And you just go through each body part bit by bit and notice. Don't judge, don't try and interpret, oh, what does that mean? No, just first
Yeah.
step, if it's something really new and unusual. Notice, is one body part colder than the other or hotter? Does a body part tingle? Does it get like a little bit of a pins and needles feeling? Can you feel all 4 fingers but you can't feel your thumb? And it is literally just noticing differences. Maybe you're really good at noticing your right hand side but really poor at noticing your left, or vice versa. Find for you what you notice. And first stage, literally just observing.
Yeah.
No judgment, and then, shake it off and carry on your day. And literally with this particular lady as well, I said the first 2 weeks, I don't want you to try and interpret a single thing. I want you just to notice. But it brings that connection, and what she found, which is what we were leading towards, after those couple of weeks, she was like, I didn't even sit down and do the exercise today, but I noticed that my elbow was feeling really itchy today. And I'm like, yes, that is what I want. And that's then that second stage where your body starts telling you the answers before you're actively scanning for them. And then you can start going, I wonder what that's about.
Yeah.
And that's where, depending on, and it can be a movement thing, or it can be, like in a coaching session, one of the things I'll often do then is we sort of focus on that energy, and through a series of coaching questions, and we look at what that could be about. So, what's the feeling underneath it? What could that mean? And we look at then what's underneath that response. And that's where that reconnection gets really strong. And we get to a point where now myself and my clients and that, whenever they say something is a bit off physically, and it might not be anything to do with their endo at all, the first question is, have you dug into that?
Yeah.
Looked at what that might be? And it might just be a boring old cold, fine. But the first point of call is, okay, something physical's happening. Just check if your body's sending you a signal about something. And it's amazing how 9 out of 10 colds are a signal for something. Or anything, the simplest thing that looks very purely physical. Your body's also sending a message at the same time, but you've opened the door then to that.
Yeah.
Hearing it.
Well, it's like what I say in a lot of my content and what I tell everybody, like, symptoms are not random. They're signals. They're always telling you something if we just take time to listen. And I think more so, and that's what you're saying here, is you're coaching your clients and then coaching all of our listeners here as well through how to listen to your body, how to cue into these signals, how to, even if you don't know what they mean, that's fine, who to come to for what they mean, and where to be able to do that. So I guess I have another question. Tell me some of your clients' breakthroughs. Because, when you look at endometriosis and we think, oh, life sentence, then I'm never going to get better. I'm never going to be cured, or whatever the case is. What are the results that you and your clients get from the work that you do and the method you use?
So, again, as you'd probably expect, the answer, like the solution, is holistic. So, on a physical, very specific body level, reduction in the strength of the symptoms that they're experiencing and the frequency. So, even myself now, I have, in the last 2 years, possibly a bit longer, I've only had one decent flare-up.
Wow.
And it was actually more recently, and it was because it had been such a while, it was like, oh gosh, what's this to do with? And when I looked into it, because I did the things that I did tell my clients to do, I had that moment of, what on earth is going on here? And sure enough, I found that there was a trigger the week beforehand that had triggered some grief over somebody I'd recently lost. It was also coming up to the anniversary of my loss of my little one, and there was a couple of other bits that are happening as well. I spoke to my coach and took me through a deep process. And even though that was probably one of the top 10 flare-ups I've ever had, instead of putting me out of action for a month or two, which it would have done prior to doing any of this work, within 1 week, I'd gone from one of the top 10 flare-ups I've ever had to completely fine.
Wow. That's amazing.
Because I'd actively gone, something's
Yeah.
going on here, especially where it came so out of the blue and the size of it. Yeah, and I say that coaching took me to the other side, and it's gone now completely. And I've had the same with clients. You know, they've gone from being like I was, you know, on really strong opiates, on the morphine, the tramadol, and all these really high, A, addictive, and B, completely messes your executive function.
Yeah.
To not needing anything, some maybe just needing 1 or 2 paracetamol on day one.
Wow.
I've also had women who have been diagnosed as infertile, unable to have kids, suddenly be able to have kids. And that's one of my favourite text messages to receive when I get just a picture of a pregnancy test. It's like, it's happened.
Yes.
It makes me so excited. Because the body in tension is an environment that's easy to grow a baby in.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And that's on the physical side. And then you've got the mental side as well, so the mind side of things, the clarity that comes with being able to live a life that's not held back by all this stuff.
Yeah.
The confidence that comes, being able to step into their authentic self, being able to own who they are, rather than shrinking away in every situation that they walk into. People have had career changes because they suddenly realised that something they've always been called to do, they now feel that they could do, whereas before it's like, it's a lovely idea, but I'm terrified.
Yeah.
And then on the spirit side as well, their connection to, you know, whatever spirit source is for them, will increase the amount of people who will take up a meditation practice more regularly because it speaks to them, or they'll be doing particular types of breathing, body work in that way, or simply that their appreciation of the world around them and nature and general life is much brighter because they feel connected to it.
Yeah.
So that whole holistic change happens in the outcome as well as the approach.
I love that. So here's a question. What is the ripple effect that you want your work to affect?
Yeah. So for me, the reason I pause is because it's always a question that brings just a little bit of emotion for me.
Of course.
Because one of the biggest drivers for me personally is endometriosis is a condition that has a high rate of going down generations. So if your mother has endo, you are 50% more likely. So your odds go from 1 in 10 women to 1 in 5. And I have 2 daughters. And for me, I don't want them to have the journey I had at the start before I learned this stuff.
Yeah.
So if that's one of my big personal drivers, which obviously then brings a few emotions, because I just don't want them to have that what felt like torture at times, and who would want that for their kids, right? So that's on a very personal why, but on a global why, it's that same thing, but for everyone. I don't want my friends' daughters to have it. I don't want my friends' sisters and aunts and mothers and all of that to have that same journey. And especially at the moment, whilst there was so much talk about improving endometriosis access and research and ways to help the condition, there's been so much talk about it, but action seems to have gone the other way, frustratingly. And I believe, I'd love to be wrong, but I believe that a modern medicine approach to the disease won't be found. And the reason I believe that it won't be found, that certainly can cover every woman, is because it's cyclical. Yeah. And there isn't a pill that can deal with cycles. And is in fact why most medicine isn't even tested on women, because we skew the results because we have those pesky cycle things that just mess up the results, rather than a scientist going, maybe if the results get messed up, they actually need a different approach. No, let's cut the women from the trial because they mess up our research. And so because of that, I don't think a pill solution to this disease will end up being found. And so as women, I'd love, my kind of big thing is, I don't have a small vision for this. As you may have gathered, perhaps from talking to me, I'm someone who dreams and thinks big.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'd love to have, as big as it sounds, 1 million women have a different endometriosis journey because of the tools that are available. And it's that big because it's that drives me, is that big of a change, that women don't feel like endometriosis is a life sentence when they're given it. And it does end up feeling like that because it just affects so much areas of your life.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to. I can't say that what I do cures endo. I'd love to one day. I do think there is a possibility that this kind of approach, that's if there is a hope of a cure, it involves something like this. So any budding researchers out there who want to come and, dig into it with me, look me up. But I can't say that is yet. And I do know it has massive difference. And if everybody out there who suffers with it and has the debilitation that they have doesn't have to have that same level, that's a world I want to see and I want my daughters to see.
And you know what? That's honestly the reason why I built my podcast, because we can touch the world one woman at a time.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to connect in that.
Yeah.
Sam, it's so wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today. Tell everybody where they can find you, how they can connect with you. We are going to put websites and everything below, but just tell people where to find you.
Mm-hmm. So Instagram, I'm Sam_the Endo Coach. Facebook is facebook.com/theendocoach. And my website is theendocoach.co.uk. And even though I am based in the UK, all my work is virtual. So I speak to anyone anywhere in the world, as long as they speak English, and that's only because that's my limitation. If I could learn another language well enough, I'm trying. I'm learning a few, but they're not quite good enough to hold a coaching conversation yet. So we are unfortunately limited in English because of me. But hey, as the mission grows, I'll be looking to take on coaches of other languages too to get it even wider. But for now, yeah, they're the 3 best ways to get in touch with me.
I love that. All right, guys, we're going to post all of that below. Sam, thank you so much for all of your wisdom and your experiences. And look, if there's anybody listening, endometriosis, it's pain in the butt or pain in the stomach, however you want to look at it. But this girl and her story and how she helps her clients, it's one of the reasons why I was so happy to have you here. So I'm excited for this and this journey, and we will catch you guys on the flip side.